Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me to discuss the appropriate ways to broadcast D&I messaging is Anu Shultes, CEO of Lendup. We also have Kimberley Morgan, COO and Head of People at Lendup. We'll also take a look at the importance of financial education. And Kimberley, welcome to Trade Talks.
Thank you.
Anu, I'd like to kick it off with you. What do you make of the recent attention that's being paid to diversity and inclusion in America?
So I'm really excited to see that companies are talking about diversity and inclusion. But unfortunately, I think as a country, we are still lagging quite a bit in companies with diversity. But I think an important fact is that no one's really even talking about inclusion, right? We say the word diversity and inclusion together, but most companies, what they really mean is just diversity. And inclusion, when it's not just enough to build a diverse team, it's important that each person feels like they belong and they're part of the team.
And Kimberley, how do you define diversity and inclusion at Lendup?
So diversity and inclusion at Lendup, right? We speak to the inclusion piece more specifically at Lendup because, as Anu mentioned, it's one thing to build a diverse team, but it's another thing to speak to the inclusion piece. And inclusion starts with leadership, and leadership has been defined at Lendup with a very diverse leadership team, which creates that representation for a diverse workforce.
And what kind of measures of D&I or efforts have been effective for Lendup?
So I will, one thing I'll tell you that piggybacking on what Kimberley said is we've been successful, I believe, in kind of creating a diverse team and making people feel like they're part of the team because I do have someone like Kimberley leading the charge. Important to note that I had a diverse team before all of this became fashionable, right? And I think that's important. When we go out and recruit, we really want to make sure that you're recruiting with conscious unbiased. I think that's part of the very first step on creating a diverse team, and then have a leader like Kimberley then lead the inclusion efforts within the company. I'd love for Kimberley to talk about that.
Yeah, and Kimberley, I wanted to ask you, what are your thoughts about communicating these efforts outside of the company more effectively?
So I think we can communicate our approach to inclusion, but our specific inclusion methods, I think we'd like to keep them private to the company, right? So as part of an inclusion tactic that we took that was, helpful for us, as Anu mentioned, that we built a diverse leadership team, but, post or on the aftermath of, the civil unrest that unfolded in the country, we did have leadership, such as myself, represented at the leadership level that made it a safe space for the African-American workforce to feel included. And so because there was trauma with the African-American employees, I spoke to the leadership team and created the safe space for just the African-Americans first. And then we opened it up for uncomfortable conversations for the company. So our approach to our workforce may be different from other workforce, but I do think that we can speak to it in general, but I do think that each company should think about what inclusion means for their workforce and come up with methods that work for them.
That's a great point, Kimberley. And Anu, I'd like to wrap up with this because I took a peek around the Lendup platform and the website, and the one thing I came across, and I mentioned this in our introduction, that financial literacy has a big place on the platform and the website. And at the end of the day, that's what helps to build a more diverse and inclusive community when you have accessible education to all. Tell us more about that.
So, Lendup was founded on the principle, right? We're here to help people get on a path to better financial health. And a very important part of that is financial education. I think, unfortunately, we do not really focus on financial education at the high school level or even at the college level, right? So a lot of people graduate college and don't necessarily know how to manage their money. It's not about how much money you have, it's about how you manage it, the whole concept of how do you manage your credit score. A lot of our customers got into trouble, not on purpose, but by accident because they didn't understand it. And so we help help them rebuild their credit score. And so financial education is very core to how we help our customers. It's not just through the products, but also helping them learn about how to manage the credit. We have courses online that they can watch this short. And we actually, it's gamified education. We give them credit for watching those courses. And so we find that over time, customers are really happy with us, not just because we give them loans when they need it, but we are there to help them think through how to get better at managing their own money.
All right, I know, Kimberly, thanks so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.